What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Marvel Snap video. And today we are taking a look at the Silver Surfer deck I used to hit infinite rank this season. Now, this is the third time I've used Silver Surfer to hit infinite rank in a season in Marvel Snap. So I consider myself to be a Silver Surfer connoisseur at this point. Is that how you say it? Probably not. But anyways, I play a lot of Silver Surfer. I really like Silver Surfer. I think it's one of the more consistent decks out there. And I'm going to go ahead and do a complete breakdown of the deck I used to reach infinite rank and hopefully help you reach infinite rank as well. So let's get into it. So this is the deck list here, and I am going to break down all the cards, go over replacements and things like that. But first I want to talk about what is the overall goal of a Silver Surfer deck. Well, Silver Surfer reads on reveal, give your other 3 cost cards +2 power. So basically what the goal of this deck is to play a bunch of 3 cost cards on the board, contest multiple lanes. Usually me, I like to contest all 3 locations if I can, and then we want to buff up all our cards with Silver Surfer. But we also have a lot of control tools in this deck. We have things like Killmonger to destroy all 1-cost cards, Kitty Pryde being a very popular card at the moment. I think Killmonger is very, very valuable. We have Storm to lock down a location, Juggernaut. Juggernaut has come in clutch many times, actually. Juggernaut's really good to push enemy cards out of the Storm location, or sometimes play him on the last turn of the game. He can almost kind of act like an arrow, where Arrow will pull your cards to a location. Juggernaut will push cards out of a location. So Juggernaut has come in clutch many times. We have Polaris, which can move a 1 or 2 cost card on the enemy side of the board, which can really screw things up, maybe sometimes clog one of their locations, which is really nice. And then we have Goose here, where nobody can play cards that cost 4, 5, or 6 at this location. The only card we have that costs above 3 is Sera, so Goose is really good at limiting where your opponent can play your card. So this is a deck that wants to contest multiple lanes, put a lot of bodies on the board, buff up all of those 3-cost bodies, and we can also buff them up with a Nova Killmonger combo as well. And then we just want to control the board with all of our control options and just have a really big explosive turn 6 if we can get Sera down on turn 5 ideally. Now let's go ahead and look at some of the strengths of the deck. Well, first off, this deck goes wide. This is a term that you have probably heard me say before if you've watched some of my previous videos. If not, what that means is basically you're just putting a lot of bodies on the board. So like I said, this is a deck that wants to contest multiple locations. And the next thing is a lot of these cards are flexible. Really, I would say the only core cards to this deck are Brood, Sera, and Surfer, and pretty much every other card is flexible in this deck list. But with that being said, I do think this is probably the most ideal version of Silver Surfer at the moment, with the control options like Killmonger, Goose, Storm, Juggernaut. So just keep that in mind. A lot of these cards are flexible, and it has multiple control tools. Again, like I said, I think having these control tools is a very strong thing. And I do have Rogue in this deck. She is flexible, but she has come in clutch many times, which is basically why the deck is called Rogue Wins Games. She can steal so many things, just a Wong, a Iron Man, a Null, just an incredible card that gets kind of slept on a little bit. Next up, we got the deck weaknesses. So first off, it can be predictable. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if your opponent sees you play just a bunch of 3-cost cards, especially Brood is really only played in like Silver Surfer decks or Patriot decks, and they see the Brood and they don't see Patriot, then they're probably going to assume you're playing Silver Surfer. So that is just kind of something to look out for. You know, it can be a little predictable, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's still a very consistent deck. And then we have that it loses to Galactus. Now, you can counter Galactus sometimes with things like Polaris pulling a card over to whichever lane they are going to play Galactus on. Or if you want to put Cosmo in this deck, you can definitely put Cosmo here. And if you have priority, you can definitely block their Galactus as well. But if you don't counter the Galactus, you're pretty much just going to lose, because there's really no way for you to come back and win after that. The only chance you might have a winning, and this is like maybe like a very slim chance, is if they Galactus you and they have priority, they play null, and you play rogue to steal their null, then maybe you can win. But that's a lot of ifs. If you get hit with the Galactus, I would just recommend retreating. And this deck can be draw dependent, and what I mean by that is two of your biggest key cards here are Silver Surfer and Sera. So if you don't draw those two cards, you might just not have enough power to put on the board to compete with some of the other decks out there. So yeah, sometimes not drawing Sera or Silver Surfer can really hurt this deck. Now let's talk about when to snap. I think it's pretty straightforward for the most part, honestly. When you have Sera and Silver Surfer, both of them in your hand, usually you want to snap unless you get hit with maybe like a wave or a Sandman, something that prevents you from playing multiple cards, because this is a deck that wants to play 3 cards on turn 6. Usually if you got Sera and Silver Surfer, you're good to go ahead and snap. Or before dropping a big counterplay. That would be things like Rogue, or maybe you're clogging up a location with Polaris, or maybe like a big Juggernaut. Or if you have Cosmo in this deck, maybe you know your opponent's going to drop a big honor reveal effect. You have Cosmo with priority. Snap before dropping the big counterplay, because if you snap after, they are just going to retreat and you're just going to get 1 cube when you could have gotten 2 cubes. So always snap before your big counterplays, and that could be said for any deck really. And when to retreat? Well, first off, again, when you're not able to counter Galactus, yeah, sometimes you might be able to, but if you're not, I would recommend just getting out of there. And then if you're missing both Sera and Silver Surfer, if you have one of them in your hand, you may be able to, get away with a sneaking out a win in the game there. But if you're missing both Sera and Silver Surfer, you might want to consider retreating, because you just might not have enough power to compete with your opponent. And I did mention this earlier, but I want to reiterate, the essential cards in this deck are Brood, because Brood spawns 3 3-cost bodies on the board that all get buffed by Surfer. And then Sera, because Sera will allow us to play 3 3-cost cards on the last turn of the game. And then, of course, Silver Surfer. Can't have a Silver Surfer deck without the man himself. And like I was saying before, every other card in this deck is replaceable. I know a lot of people are going to be asking, well, what if I don't have Jeff? What can I put in? I would recommend putting in Scorpion. Scorpion is just a very good 2-cost card that can fit into just about any deck. If you do have Jeff, though, I would highly recommend keeping him in this deck, because he can come in really clutch. You can surprise your opponents by playing him into that storm location, or moving him in or out of that storm location to secure the win in the end of the game. So Jeff is a very good card. If you have him, I would definitely recommend keeping him in this deck list. And then we have some other 3-cost cards I think that could fit in here. Cosmo, I mentioned a couple of times, can be good for countering some of your opponent's plays, especially Galactus. Then we have Maximus. Maximus is just a 3/7, so he's just a lot of points on the board, so you can play him on the final turn of the game, where his on reveal ability doesn't really affect you too much. Or if you're playing Maximus and Cosmo in the same deck, you can play like Cosmo on turn 3, Maximus on turn 4 on top of Cosmo, so he doesn't trigger the on reveal ability. That's a pretty cool combo as well. And then we have Shadow King. Shadow King was recently buffed to a 3-cost in one of the previous patches. And I haven't experimented with Shadow King myself, to be honest. I just unlocked him, but I think he maybe could be a legit addition to this deck. Maybe like instead of Rogue, depending on where the meta is, because previously there was a lot of ongoing cards in the meta, like Darkhawk especially, right? Rogue was a really good counter for Darkhawk. So maybe if you're not running into so much Darkhawk and, we're running into more bounce decks, Shadow King might be the way to go, honestly, because, a lot of bounce decks like to buff up Kitty, Bishop, Angela, and Shadow King can just absolutely just negate those cards. So Shadow King might actually be pretty legit in here. And if I were to replace a card with Shadow King, it would probably be Rogue. So now we're going to go ahead and get into a turn-by-turn breakdown. And of course, every game is going to be different. You know, it's going to depend on the locations, what's in your hand, what's in your deck, and whatnot. But this is kind of like the ideal scenario of what you want to be doing with this deck. So turn one, you either want to play Nova or skip. Myself, I have been leaning more towards skipping turn one and just playing Nova on turn four. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But you can play Nova if you want. It's just sometimes, you know, you might get countered with armor or something like that. And then turn two, you can play Goose or Jeff, or if you don't have Jeff, you can play Scorpion. So just whichever 2-cost card you have in your hand at the moment. And then turn three may be where things start to get a little bit trickier. You want to play the best 3-cost card for the situation. It's always going to depend on locations in your hand, again, or a proactive 3-cost card. And what does proactive mean? It means a card that you don't necessarily need to interact with your opponent's card on the other side of the board. So 3-cost proactive cards would be things like Brood, where you're just putting points on the board. Mr. Fantastic, again, just putting points on the board, or Storm to just storm a location. Some of the more reactive cards you want to save for later are going to be things like Killmonger, Juggernaut, Polaris, and Rogue. Those are cards that are going to react to your opponent's card. So usually you want to play a proactive card on turn three. And then turn four is usually where I like to play Nova, actually. And the reason for that is because we can play a 3-cost card and then we have 1 energy left over. Well, Nova just slots in there nicely. So usually, you know, by turn four, we're able to kind of evaluate the game board a little bit better because all 3 locations will have been revealed at that point. And sometimes playing Nova on an unrevealed location can fire back. You know, but I guess that could be said about playing any card on any unrevealed location. But I have been leaning towards saving Nova till turn 4 as of recently. And then turn 5. Of course, if you got Sera, all you got to do is slam Sera down, and it is time to unload on turn 6. And hopefully you did not get hit with a Sandman or Wave. If you did, you might consider retreating. If not, then you should be good to go. And then, of course, on turn 6, we want to play Silver Surfer and then 2 other 3-cost cards. Usually going to be our reactive cards, right? Things like Killmonger or Rogue. So yeah, very, very straightforward once you kind of break it down. Again, this is sort of just like the ideal play patterns. It's gonna depend on your play style, your hand locations, and whatnot, but this is sort of the ideal play style for Silver Surfer. And a couple things I want to note before we get into the gameplay here is, one, I did play this deck before the patch, so that was before Kitty Pryde came out and before Bounce became really popular. So that's why I had Rogue in here. There was a lot of Darkhawk going around, and Rogue was really good at countering those Darkhawks. But like I said, you maybe could consider putting Shadow King in this slot. I just haven't really experimented with Shadow King myself, but I think he actually could be pretty good, you know, with Bounce being one of the more popular decks right now. And then the second thing I want to mention is, you know, where are the stats for this deck? Because I've been trying to do a better job of showing you like the untapped.gg stats, where it shows you like how many games I played and the win rate and the cube rate and things like that. Well, to be honest with you, I played all of these games to infinite on my phone. I mostly play on iPhone, and there's no way to track your games on iPhone at the moment. I believe Untapped just released their tracker for Android, but yeah, I guess sucks for us iPhone users. But yeah, I actually play a lot of this game on mobile. I really only play on PC, like when I'm recording gameplay for you guys or making videos. So yeah, I apologize, I don't have the stats for this deck, but just I know this sounds kind of like just trust me bro, but I don't know what else to say. Like, just trust me. Like, this deck is good. I've been playing Silver Surfer ever since the card release. This is my third time hitting Infinite with the Silver Surfer deck, so I do think I know what I'm talking about when it comes to Silver Surfer, and I think this is one of the most consistent decks that you can play in the current meta. It just has a lot of flexibility, a lot of control tools, a lot of ways to put points on the board. Yeah, it's just an overall good deck, and I think if you pilot it decently enough, you can reach infinite rank yourself with it. So apologize for no stats for you guys, but yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into some gameplay here. All right, so starting off here, we do have Nova in hand, but I'm gonna go ahead and hold on to him, and we get a Misty Knight, so that is, you know, some good information. We know our opponent is going to be playing a Patriot deck. Again, no 2-cost card. We still have Nova. I guess we can play him, but that's kind of going to tip off to our opponent that we have a Killmonger. So I think I'm still going to hold on to the Nova for now, and we'll probably just play him on turn 4. I think here I'm probably going to want to play Mr. Fantastic into Stark Tower. That just seems like the best play for right now. But Nova Roma draws us a card. We get the Goose, and we get the Brood. We could do Brood into Stark Tower as well, but I think I'm gonna do Mr. Fantastic here. And if we can rogue the Patriot, that's actually gonna be really, really good. So the Patriot does come down. The thing is, we don't have priority, so he can Mystique the Patriot, but I think, do I still want to rogue the Patriot, or do we potentially save the rogue? We might save the rogue to steal Blue Marvel instead, but I think roguing the Patriot. Yeah, let's just do it. Let's just rogue the Patriot because our Broods will get the buff from the Patriot here, and so Mystique does come down, but we're able to steal the original Patriot, which is fine. And at this point, I think we want him to keep priority. We didn't draw Sera, unfortunately. Let's do Polaris over here to pull a card and block this location here. And I think I'm gonna play Goose here as well to... Do I want to play Goose here, or do I want to play Goose in Stark Tower to make things a little bit awkward? Goose will also get that buff, so maybe I actually do play Goose into Stark Tower. And he plays the thing in there for the buff. Okay, so these two locations are blocked, so maybe I could have played Goose onto this right location here. Now we do have priority. I think we're just going to probably Brood and Killmonger. We didn't draw Sera. We literally did not draw our two biggest cards in the deck, Sera and Silver Surfer. But I think we might still be able to win this because the Broods are going to get buffed from our Rogue since we stole the Patriot. And then we can play Killmonger here that will destroy the Nova. It will destroy our Squirrels, but it'll also destroy his Squirrels plus his Misty Knight. Yeah, we probably should have played Goose here, though, to prevent like a Doctor Doom or Ultron or something, maybe. But I think we could still win this one, so let's see what our opponent has. Probably like a Wasp and Ultron, maybe. And here comes the Brood. Here comes the Killmonger. And, oof, that's a lot of destroys. So let's see what our opponent has for us here. And it is an Ultron. That's going to be 9 points here, plus the Wasp over here, and we get the dub. So a very, very close call. Yeah. Oh, that's a Pixel Ultron. That must be new. I haven't seen that before. But I digress. That was a very, very good game. We didn't even draw Sera or Silver Surfer, and we still won. I'm telling you, Rogue wins games, man. I'm telling you. All right, next game up, we got nothing to play on turn 1. Usually, we're not going to play anything on turn 1, to be honest with you, so we're just going to skip our turn here. We do have Jeff in our hand, which is very, very nice, and our opponent drops a Rocket Raccoon in the middle. So maybe like a Guardians control type of deck. I'm going to go ahead and play Jeff. I don't know which location I want to play him in, actually. I guess we can play him in the middle for now. Although, if he's playing Guardians, maybe he plays like Star-Lord in the middle. He probably doesn't want to play Star-Lord in Necrotia. So let's play Jeff in Necrotia for now. And I called it. He did play Star-Lord in the middle. So that's a good read on my part. Then we have Negative Zone. So these locations are a little bit awkward for us. Here, Rogue has nothing to steal, so we don't play Rogue. I could play Polaris to pull one of their cards. Mr. Fantastic is a good proactive play. I do like Storm to maybe Storm either Negative Zone or Necrotia, but I don't have Juggernaut to follow up is kind of the issue. So I think I'm just going to play Mr. Fantastic for now. And they do have Storm. I was afraid it's going to be like a Groot, actually. Now, if I draw... Okay, I was going to say, if I draw Juggernaut, that would have been really, really good. But we did not draw the Juggernaut. That's fine. We're probably not going to be able to win this flooded location. I think I'm going to do Polaris to pull one of his cards into the Negative Zone. Yeah, I really wish we had Juggernaut here. So let's just do Polaris. And it pulls the Rocket Raccoon for -1 over there. And Jessica Jones comes down. So yeah, I think we're probably just going to forget the flooded location. Just worry about Necrotia and Negative Zone. Do I want to snap? Maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I want to snap, actually. Because we don't have Silver Surfer. We do have the Sera this time. But yeah, I don't know if I want to snap, actually. And a Gamora. He whiffs the Gamora. Which is actually really good for us. Yeah, I was kind of worried about like Professor X or Spider-Man or something like that. And our hand is not great here. Our hand is not great here. Like we really again, man, we getting some bad draws here, huh? No Silver Surfer, no Killmonger, no Juggernaut. I think we're gonna go ahead and just retreat from this game. Yeah, this is kind of like one of those games where we just got like a pretty unfortunate hand and some kind of weird locations as well. Like maybe we could have done something with like move the Jeff to Negative Zone, do like the Broods in Necrotia, but I don't know. We could have stormed Necrotia as well, but I think he could have won Negative Zone, and yeah, just not really good hand, not really good locations for us, so we're okay with retreating there. Next game up, again, we have Nova, but still, I want to hang on to him. I could play him like here, but this could turn into Space Throne, and that could be kind of bad for us. So let's hang on to him. We could maybe Polaris. Oh, Mr. Sinister. Okay, Polaris, the Mr. Sinister could be good, unless maybe he's playing like Patriot. Let's see here. We get the Super Flow, so I think we're gonna go for the Polaris and the Space Throne. This may be a snapping situation, but at the same time, I'm not. I don't know. I'm gonna hang on to it. I'm gonna hang on to the Nova. I'm not gonna snap, but we're gonna do Polaris to pull either Mr. Sinister or Sinister Clone into the Space Throne, hopefully locking down that location. And a Debris comes down, so it's actually looking like a Patriot deck. Now I get 1 extra energy from the Super Flow here, which is nice. And we do get the Killmonger, so I think I'm gonna snap. We got Sera, we got Killmonger, we got Silver Surfer. We can Killmonger this rock, which is going to be really nice. So I think we actually got a good hand this time, thankfully. And there is the Patriot. Now, if we draw the Rogue, oh man, it's game over. If we draw Rogue, it is a game over. We did not draw Rogue, but we did get Jeff. And something you might not know about Jeff is he can be in the Space Throne. Only 1 card can be here for each player. Well, you could throw Jeff in here. I know it doesn't show the little like blue outline, but if you just drag him in here, you can play Jeff in here, which is pretty sweet. So let's do Jeff there. And let's do, I guess let's just put points. Let's just go for points. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play Jeff in the middle. I'm gonna play Brood on the left. I'm hoping I get Rogue. Because ideally what I want to do is like Rogue, Killmonger, Surfer. We draw Mr. Fantastic. That's not what I wanted, but I think that's fine. It's not terrible, right? So what we'll do is we will do Mr. Fantastic. Let's do Mr. Fantastic here on the right, and then we will do Killmonger here, and we will do Surfer here. And I think that should be enough to win. Onslaught comes down. That's going to be a lot of points. But it is not enough. Silver Surfer coming down for the win. No Rogue needed. GG to Seidler. All right, so next game up here, we had nothing to play on one. They hit us with a Yondu on turn 2, and it hit our Mr. Fantastic. We get Gamma Lab, which is actually pretty good for Juggernaut. I'm going to throw Jeff in there. We'll play him in there, and we could potentially move him if we want to, but I'll keep him in there for now. Nadavalier. So let's do. Oh, we could Storm as well, though. Maybe we just Storm Gamma Lab, follow up with Juggernaut. So let's do that actually. And it's an Electro, so Yondu Electro potentially could be Galactus, potentially could be. So let's do, we got a bunch of Galactus counters actually. We got Polaris, we got Goose, we got Juggernaut. So I think I'm gonna snap. We'll snap here. We'll play Juggernaut in the middle. And if it is Galactus, we can probably do Polaris on the right location here. And it's a Nimrod. So this does look like a Galactus deck. Let's see if it goes right. And it does go right, which is really good for us. So let's do Goose. Yeah, I think we do Goose on the right, and we do Polaris over here. That way they are unable to Galactus. And they're just going to play Taskmaster on to the Nimrod. Okay, that's a little weird. That's a little weird, but all right. I guess we're okay with it. We do get Brood Surfer, which is actually really, really good. So let's do Brood on the Davalier, and then Surfer on the left. And I think there should be enough points to win it. Storm and Juggernaut both get buffed. All the Broods are going to get buffed from the location and the Surfer. I think this should be enough points to take it here, but let's see. And our opponent does not have an answer for us, so we get the dub there. GG's there. All right, and that is the deck and the gameplay. Hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay. I think Silver Surfer is a very good, consistent deck with a lot of flexible options that you can slot in and out of. So really hope you guys appreciate this video, because I worked really hard on this one. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and consider subscribing as well. It would really, really help me out, and I would really appreciate it. And if you stuck around to the end of the video, that means you're a real one, and the keyword for this video is going to be Goose. So if you stuck around to the end of the video, type in Goose in the comments. I know you stuck around to the end, and you're a real one for that, and I appreciate you so very much. Once again, thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate y'all, and see you in the next one. Later.